The Super League is England's premier rugby league competition, but oddly enough, there's also a French team. There are certainly some interesting stadiums in this league, and some you may have seen in earlier videos. We are a bit late with this video, the season has already passed the halfway point, but better late than never, as Shrek once said. Here are the Super League 2021 stadiums. The Menderhose Jungle, home of the Castleford Tigers.
Welcome to the jungle. We can fix your hose. If there is a crack or leak, we can get it closed.
I think that was a song by the Kinks. I'm sure they play it frequently at this ground, but I suppose the jungle is an appropriate name. It's a little rough around the edges, and it's the home of tigers. But maybe concrete jungle is a better fit because it's made up of mostly concrete terracing. In fact, this old-fashioned covered section of the main stand are the only seats in the house. But if they're playing that kind of music, it makes perfect sense. Everyone will be dancing. Stade Gilbert Brutus, home of the Catalans Dragons. I don't think you needed me to point it out, but this is the French one. And it's not even close to England, it's way down south, as you might expect by the name. Dragons are native to southern France. The stadium is a bit of a mismatch of different styles. That's because the two larger stands were added in the mid-2000s, which tripled the stadium's capacity. And because of the close proximity of the road, it's left with this large gap in one corner. The French seem to like that crinkle-cut style of roof, not sure why. As long as it's sea salt and balsamic vinegar, I don't care how they cut it. An interesting stadium though. John Smith Stadium, home of the Huddersfield Giants. Are those roofs really sky blue, or are they just giant mirrors? Wait, no, that can't be the case. This is Yorkshire. It's probably grey and miserable. Ooh, I stand corrected. What, you think there's no sunshine in Yorkshire? It's the stereotype. But the Super League's played over the summer. It can get as high as 20 degrees sometimes. Me friend's cousin nearly got sunburnt at a game once. Alright. I do really like the look of those arched roofs though. The north stand is taller than the south, and the west stand is taller than the east. What that does mean though is that the trees on the adjacent hill form the backdrop on that side. MKM Stadium, home of Hull FC. It's another somewhat modern stadium, but this one's a fully enclosed bowl. However, it's not boring like some others in the country. For starters, it's asymmetrical. And on that larger side, the roof canopy kind of does its own thing, which looks great. As does the interior, which matches the kit of both teams that play here, Hull and Hull City. An interior made up of mostly black seats seems to always look good, but I think this one might be the best of the lot. And not far away is Hull College Craven Park Stadium, home of the Hull Kingston Rovers. It's a unique layout. That's largely due to the fact that it used to host speedway and athletics events, but it's only really to the south where it's noticeable. You might not have noticed, but there is actually a small terrace in front of those trees for the away fans. The further north you go in this stadium, the more advanced the seating gets. The Colin Hutton North Stand is very modern and it has these red towers. It's not really of major importance, but I like them. This place has plenty of character. Emerald Headingley Rugby Stadium, home of the Leeds Rhinos. You'll notice something odd about this one straight away. It has an attached cricket stadium. Kind of. The north stand is just one building that is shared by both stadiums. The adjacent south stand is built in a similar style, but a little less Siamese. Also, the lower tier is a terrace and the top tier is seated. You're out of luck if you're an away fan visiting the ground, because you have to put up with potentially standing in the rain on this uncovered terrace once again. Oh, and I should mention that it's the largest rugby league specific stadium in the country. Leigh Sports Village Stadium, home of the Leigh Centurions. It's part of a larger sports facility that includes all sorts of things, such as an athletics track. Unlike the last one, there's not a whole lot that differentiates this stadium from numerous others around the country. That brick, glass and metallic cladding facade is a dime a dozen, but nevertheless, it looks pretty good and it's a fine facility. AJ Bell Stadium, home of the Salford Red Devils. Ah yes, if you watched the Premiership rugby video, you'd have already known that the Red Devils play here. Interesting that the rugby union team that plays here, Sale Sharks, represent another town. But both Salford and Sale are part of Greater Manchester, and are an equal distance from the stadium more or less. 3 of the stands are fairly typical, but the much larger main stand is quite distinctive. And I always seem to like lopsided stadiums for some reason. It does allow for some decent views for those sitting high up in the main stand. Totally Wicked Stadium, home of St Helens. You might be wondering how it got the name Totally Wicked Stadium. Well, upon seeing the stadium for the first time, Queen Elizabeth II exclaimed, "Wow! They told me there was nothing to see in St Helens, but this stadium is totally f***ing wicked, innit?" They were absolutely chuffed to hear such a compliment, so they named the stadium after it. They did obviously have to omit the swearing for legal reasons, but I agree with the Queen. It has a flashy exterior, I love the hits of red, and on the inside it's just as good. I like how on 3 sides of the ground there is a sizable gap between the roof canopy and the seats, which allows for views of outside the stadium. Bellevue, home of Wakefield Trinity. The Queen wasn't as complimentary with this one, but she's always been a bit of a snob. So they took a quote from the French Minister for Sport who said he got a beautiful view from his seat, which in French is Belle vue. That may have been a while ago or a fabrication, because nowadays it's a little rough around the edges, but it does have plenty of character. It has one fairly standard seated stand, 2 terraces, and then to the south it's got these interesting buildings. There are plans to upgrade the stadium soon to give it a much needed facelift and slight increase to its modest capacity. I look forward to seeing it. Halliwell Jones Stadium, home of the Warrington Wolves. The stadium has a very white exterior with some brickwork lower down, and consists of a U-shaped section as well as one detached terrace. This is because when the stadium was first built it was just 4 individual stands, but the corners of the eastern stand were filled in about a decade ago. We've seen a couple of grounds in this league with a terrace behind the 2 ends, but to see a stand along the sideline that is completely made up of terracing in a modern stadium like this is quite rare. The last one had it, I know, but that was far from being modern. DW Stadium, home of the Wigan Warriors. This one's like a slightly larger version of Leigh Sports Village. Well, actually it was built first, so the other way around. But it has a similar facade, a single-tiered stand on each side, and even an athletics track next door. Except there's no terrace at this ground. Perhaps because it's shared with Wigan Athletic and football clubs tend to be less inclined to have a terrace. But yeah, it's an excellent ground to end with. And those were the Super League stadiums. If you enjoyed the video, then the obvious decision going forward would be to click the subscribe button. But that's up to you. I don't know, it just seems kind of obvious. What do you think, Liz? Yeah. Thanks for watching, have a good one.